Hi and welcome to our New Testament Greek Masterclass. Today we're looking at chapter 5 and we're looking at nouns, the first and second declension. But to understand chapter 5, we'll look at a review of chapter 4. In chapter 4, we looked at nouns and we say that every time you look at a noun, there are three things that are important. That is gender, the number, and the case. And that these three things are found in the case ending. We also looked at verbs and we looked at the difference between declension and conjugation. Remember, we said declension deals with nouns, but conjugation deals with verbs. And just a reminder, what is conjugation? To conjugate a verb means to show how it changes form in order to express person, number, tense, voice, and mood. And so verbs are conjugated while nouns are declined. And we also touched on passing, and we said when you pass a verb or a noun, you give its key information. For example, you give its gender, its case, its number, its tense, its voice, its person, its mood, and its lexical form. And after this, you translate. And we said passing refers to both verbs and nouns. Let's look at something else that we looked at. We also looked at this structure here, and we said every time you're looking at a Greek noun, there are two things that are involved. You have the stem and you have the case ending. And the most important part is the case ending, because the case ending is what tells you the gender of the word, the number of the word, and the case. And we said that when you want to show how a Greek noun, for example the word apostolos, when you want to show how apostolos can function differently in a sentence, you change the case ending and not the stem. You attach different case endings to the word apostolos and not the stem. So the stem remains the same. And we're going to look at how this is applicable. The stem remains the same, but the case ending changes depending on the function of the word. But we're going to look at this in details. Since we're looking at first and second declension, we'll start by looking at what declension means. Declension is when nouns change their case endings to show how a word can function differently in a sentence. In Greek, nouns change form, or what we call case ending, based on their function in the sentence. For example, a noun can play a function of a subject or object or to show possession in the sentence. So all these are different functions of a word in a sentence. And when a noun changes its form to show different functions in a sentence, this is what we call declension. And this is achieved by attaching different case endings to the word. In English, we use word order to show rows of the words in the sentence. We look at how words are arranged in the sentence to determine the function of the word in the sentence. Let's look at English examples given. We have two sentences there. The first one says, the man sees the woman. And the other one is, the woman sees the man. In the first sentence, the word man is the subject of the sentence in English. Why? Because of the word order. Since the word man is beginning the sentence, it's the subject of the sentence. And since the word woman is ending the sentence, it's the object of the sentence. And in the next sentence, the woman sees the man. The word woman becomes the subject of the sentence because it's beginning the sentence. And the word man, since it's ending the word, becomes the object of the sentence. So you can see that in English, the function of the word is depending on the word order, how words are arranged in the sentence. But in Greek, this is different because in Greek, we change the case ending. We don't focus on the word order, we focus on the case ending, how a word is spelled or written, and the last part of the word tells us the function of the word in the sentence, not the word order. So in Greek, word order is not so much followed. What is mostly followed is a case ending. Let's look at the Greek example given. We have the first one, hologos, hologos. And hologos means the word. And we have the other one, ton logon, ton logon. Let's focus on the words logos and logon, logos and logon, to see the difference. Both of them mean word, but their function is different. Because in the first one, logos, because of that case ending, omicron sigma, that case ending shows us that the word is functioning as a subject of the sentence. Even though you're not given the sentence, the full sentence, just looking at the case ending, we are able to tell the function of logos in the sentence. And logon, the last part, if we look at the case ending, the last part of the word, omicron nu, that case ending there is telling us that the word logon is the object of the sentence. And so if we put logon in a sentence, it's going to be the object of the sentence. Regardless of where it is, it can be at the beginning of a word or at the ending of a word. What is important is to look at the ending of a word. And so what we're saying is this, that in Greek, the more important thing is the case ending, because the case ending is telling you which one is the subject of the word in a sentence and which one is the object of the word in a sentence. And you can see we are using the same word logon, logos, but the two stand for different functions in a sentence. And this is what we mean by declension, changing how a word looks to show different functions of a word. Another English example is this. You have the words I, me, my. They are same words but show different functions or roles in the sentence. For example, you can say something like this. She gave the Bible to I. In English, that becomes wrong because the word I must start the sentence. I is mostly used when you are beginning a sentence to show the subject of the sentence. So you say, I gave her the Bible. For example, you can't say in English, that is the Bible of me. You can't say that. So if you want to show possession in English, you say, that is my Bible. Because the word my is used to show possession. And you can see that it's the same word, but plays different roles. You have I, you have me, you have my. Depending on the sentence, all these are different ways of writing the same word, but to show different functions of a word in a sentence. And sometimes in English, you change the appearance of a word to show the different function. But in Greek, you change the case ending to show the different function of a word. And so what we're saying here is that declension is when you're changing the appearance of a word, when you're changing the case ending of a word, to show how that word can function differently in the sentence. And this will become clear as we move on and look at more examples. To help us understand declension in Greek, we use the four cases. And so the four cases help us to show the different function a word can play in a sentence. For example, you have the word theos. Theos means God. But theos can play four different functions. In Greek, we use these four main cases, the nominative, the genitive, the dative, and the accusative, to show the different function of a word in the sentence. And these changes that you make to the case ending, the one that is highlighted there, these changes that you are making to the stem, the, these changes are what we call declension. When you make changes to the case ending of a word to show how that word can function in different ways in a sentence, that is what we call declension. Let's look at this example. You have theos, you have theou, you have theo, and then you have theon. In the nominative, you have theos. In genitive, you have theou. In dative, you have theo. And in the accusative, you have theon. If you remember in our previous lecture, we said the nominative is used when you want to show that the word is the subject of the sentence. And the nominative has that case ending, omicron sigma. Omicron sigma is a sign of the nominative. And the genitive is used when you want to show possession. That's why when you're translating the genitive, you say of God. Instead of just saying God, you say of God. And then you have the dative. The dative is used when you want to show an indirect object. For example, you have the word theo. And when you're translating the dative, you always put to or into. So to or into, these are keywords when you're translating the dative, because it shows the indirect object. But if a word is the direct object in a sentence, you use the accusative, because the accusative is used to show that the word is the direct object of the sentence. For example, the word theon. And you'll notice that the nominative and accusative is translated in the same way, but their function is different. For example, the nominative shows the subject of a sentence, while the accusative shows the object of a sentence, the direct object of a sentence. So what we are doing here is we are declining the word theos. And so when you're declining the word theos, you're showing how the word theos can be written differently to show the different functions of that word in a sentence. If it's functioning as a subject of the sentence, it has to be in the nominative having that case ending omicron sigma. If it's functioning as showing possession in a sentence, it has to be in the genitive having the case ending omicron upsilon. If it's functioning as a direct object in a sentence, it's going to be in the dative having omega, but that omega has to have a iota subscript, as it is shown there. That iota under the omega is called the iota subscript. Again, the word can function as the direct object, and that is shown in the accusative with that case ending omicron nu. And so this is how you decline the word theos. You decline it by attaching different case endings by showing how it can function differently in a sentence. For example, if it's in nominative, it's theos, meaning God. If it's in genitive, it's going to be theou, and the translation is going to be of God. If it's in the dative, it's going to be theo, and the translation is going to be to God. If it's in the accusative, it's going to be theon, and the translation is going to be God. Remember, nominative and accusative, the translations are the same, but the meaning is different. Again, Greek does not use word order to show the function of a word in a sentence. It uses case endings. You change the case endings to show that this is the subject of a sentence, this is the object of the sentence, or this is showing possession in a sentence. And this is reflected in the cases, the nominative, the genitive, the dative, and the accusative. And each one of these, the four cases, they have their own case endings. And these case endings will need to be mastered so that you can decline a word properly. But we'll look at this in detail as we go on. As we look at declension, there are three declensions in Greek. For example, we have the first declension, the second declension, and the third declension. And these declensions are grouped depending on the gender. Why are there three declensions? Greek has three declensions to group the nouns based on their stem endings. Nouns are grouped based on their case endings or their spelling patterns. And so there are three declensions. You have the first declension, the second declension, and the third declension. Now, the first declension refers to feminine nouns. And so if you have a noun in the feminine, it falls in the first declension. And the key to identifying first declension nouns is that the nouns are going to be ending with either alpha or eta. As you can see there, you have two case endings in the feminine. You have words that are ending with alpha, for example, doxa, and words that are ending with eta, for example, graphe. So these two are examples of feminine nouns. And feminine nouns fall under first declension nouns. And this will be words that are ending with alpha or words that are ending with eta. And then you have the second declension. The second declension includes all the nouns that are in the masculine gender or the neuter gender. All the words in the masculine or neuter are in the second declension. And these words are going to be ending with the case ending omicron sigma or omicron nu. So as you are looking at the vocabulary, the words that are ending with omicron sigma, that case ending, or words that are ending with omicron nu, that case ending, these are examples of words that are going to be in the second declension. These are second declension words. And so you have those two examples. You have apostolos and you have egon. And these are examples of second declension nouns. And then you have third declension nouns. Third declension nouns refer to all the three genders. This refers to a mixture of all the three genders. You have words that are in the feminine, you have words that are in the masculine, you have words that are in the neuter. But the difference is here. These words are either going to be ending with rho, that case ending, or iota sigma, that case ending. These are words that are going to be looking like pater, that word there, ending with rho, or words that are going to be ending with iota sigma. For example, charis. So pater and charis are examples of third declension nouns. What is important here is to know that there are three declensions in Greek and that nouns are grouped based on these three declensions. You have the first declension referring to feminine nouns, and you have second declension referring to masculine and neuter nouns, and you have third declension referring to words that are ending with rho or words that are ending with iota and sigma. Let's move on. Before we look at the paradigm or a chart that shows the case endings, I want to remind you again that when you're looking at a noun, there are two things that are important. You have the stem and you have the ending. And the case ending is the one that is important because it tells you the gender of a word, the number of a word, and the case of a word. And we said every case has its own ending. And this is going to be shown as we look at the paradigm. So let's look at the paradigm. This is the paradigm that shows all the case endings for first and second declension nouns. Remember we said first and second declension nouns are words that are belonging to the feminine, the neuter, and the masculine. Because we said first declension nouns refer to feminine nouns, and we said second declension nouns combine masculine and neuter. So this chart or paradigm is a paradigm for first and second declension nouns. And this paradigm is very important to know because without this paradigm, you cannot decline a word. Without this paradigm, you cannot pass a word. And this is a paradigm that shows you what kind of function the word is playing in a sentence. Remember we said, in English, you look at the word order, but in Greek, you look at the case ending. And these are the endings that tell you. For example, when you're looking at the word ending with omicron sigma, for example, theos, that word would be in the masculine gender because on the paradigm, it's having case endings for the masculine. So there are three genders on the paradigm. You have masculine endings, you have neuter endings, and you have feminine endings. If a word is having masculine endings, it's in the masculine gender. If a word is having neuter endings, it's going to be in the neuter gender. If a word is having feminine endings, it's going to be in the feminine gender. Again, there are three things that are important on the paradigm. You have gender on top there. You have masculine, neuter, and feminine. On the side, you have the cases. You have nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. And you have singular case endings on top there. And at the bottom, you have plural case endings. As we said it, a word can be singular, for example, theos, meaning God, or it can be plural, for example, theoi, meaning gods. So when you want to show the differences, you simply change the endings. And this is going to be clear as we look at more examples. But what is important here is to notice that masculine gender has its own endings, and the neuter gender has its own endings, and feminine gender has its own endings. And also that the cases themselves have their own endings. For example, there are endings for the nominative, there are endings for the genitive singular, there are endings for the dative singular, there are endings for the accusative singular, there are endings for the plural. You have the nominative plural endings, you have the genitive plural endings, you have the dative plural endings, and you have the accusative plural endings. But we're going to look at how to apply Greek nouns to this paradigm. And this paradigm is the one that you need to know to learn how to decline words. But let's look at how this applies to nouns. And I want to repeat this. We said in English, the function of a word in a sentence is based on the word order. But in Greek, the function of a word in a sentence is based on word ending, case ending. And all these highlighted words are what we call case ending. And we said that if you want to show different functions of a word, you simply attach other case endings to the word. Let's look at the first example in the masculine. You have the word logos. Logos is masculine because it's falling under masculine. But more important, logos is masculine because it's having masculine case ending. That omicron sigma is what we call the masculine case ending. And all the highlighted endings that you are seeing under masculine, those are what we call masculine case endings. And so if you see those endings on a word, on a noun, just know that that noun is belonging to the masculine gender. And so we're saying, if you're given logos and you're taught to decline it, remember to decline is to show how that word can function differently in a sentence. This is how you do it. You get the stem. Remember we said a word has two things. You have the stem and you have the ending. You get the stem of a word, log, and you begin attaching case endings, those ones that are highlighted under the masculine. You begin attaching those case endings to the word log. And the stem remains the same. You can see there, throughout under masculine there, you have log, 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 log in the singular as well as the plural. The only thing that changes is the case ending. So the dative has iota subscript, has the omega with the iota subscript. That is its case ending. That is what tells you that that word you're looking at is in the dative singular. And so you have different ways of writing logos based on the function of logos in the sentence. For example, if logos is the subject of a sentence, you're going to use the nominative because we said the nominative shows the subject of a sentence. And so you're going to attach to the stem of the word log, you're going to attach omicron sigma. If logos is showing possession, you're going to use the genitive, and so you're going to have logu. Instead of logos, you're going to have logu. And if logos is showing an indirect object, you're going to have logo, because that is what shows the indirect object. And if logos wants to function as the direct object of a sentence, you use the accusative, and that word is going to be logon. Logos means word, and that's why you have singular endings as well as plural endings. If you want to put it in the plural, again you follow the same structure. Depending on the function of a word, it can be in the nominative, the genitive, the dative, or the accusative. And that applies to other genders. For example, in the neuter you have the word agon. Agon means work. And agon can function differently in the sentence. It can be the subject of a sentence, and so it can be in the nominative singular, agon. It can be showing possession, being in the genitive singular, egu. It can be in the dative singular, showing the indirect object, ego. It can be in the accusative singular, showing a direct object, agon. And this applies to the feminine gender as well. You have the word graphe. In the nominative, you have the word graphes. In the genitive, you have the word graphe. In the dative, you have the word graphen in the accusative singular. And that applies also to the plural endings. You have graphi in the nominative, graphon in the genitive, graphis in the dative, and graphas in the accusative. You're going to notice that the nominative singular, that nominative singular there is what we use when you're mastering the words in the vocabulary. Those words that you always master at the end of the lecture are always going to be words from the nominative singular. For example, you have logos that you're going to find on the vocabulary. You have agon and you have graphe. And the second thing to notice, and this is very important, you must know that every word, every noun has only one gender. Every Greek noun can only have one gender. It's like the word Mary in English or the word John. John cannot be female as well as male. John is male and Mary is female. Or John is masculine and Mary is feminine. Same applies to Greek nouns. A Greek noun can only have one gender. You can't have logos appearing under neuter and appearing under feminine. Logos will appear under masculine, agon will appear under neuter, and graphe will appear under feminine. And here are the differences between the three genders. Masculine nouns are known by the ending, the case ending, omicron sigma. So those words that you master on the vocabulary that are ending with omicron sigma, that case ending there, those are masculine words. And the neuter words are known by the ending omicron nu. So the words that you find with the case ending omicron nu, those are neuter. They end the neuter gender. And so you decline them as the word agon is declined. Also you have the feminine, and feminine words of two forms. We have the common ones that are ending with eta, and we have the less common ones that are ending with alpha. So words that you're going to see in Greek ending with eta are in the feminine gender, as well as those that are ending with alpha. Those are in the feminine gender, and you decline them as the word graphe is declined in the feminine gender. And so what we're saying is that every Greek noun falls under one gender. You can't have a Greek noun in two genders or three genders. Every Greek noun has its own gender, and you're going to decline it based on its gender. And so as you look at a Greek noun, you must tell its gender by looking at the case ending. If the case ending is omicron sigma, that one, it means that it's in the masculine gender. If it's omicron nu, it's in neuter gender. If it's ending with eta, it means that the word is feminine. And so every Greek noun has only one gender. This paradigm is very important, and so it's a requirement, you must know it by heart. You must know all these case endings, because by knowing these case endings, they're going to allow you to learn how to translate words, as well as learn how to translate sentences in Greek. But let me share some tips on the paradigm, just to help you learn it better and simpler. I want to highlight some similarities that will help you learn the paradigm faster. And I've shown those similarities by the arrows that are pointing. For example, in the genitive and the dative, you have the two arrows in the genitive and the dative under masculine and neuter gender, showing you that what you put on the genitive, masculine, omicron upsilon, is what you put there under neuter. And you have the dative there, having omega with the iota subscript, showing you that you have the omega there and omega there. So those arrows are showing you similarities, what is similar, what is being repeated, so that you can learn the paradigm easily. For example, under neuter, you have omicron nu on top there in the nominative, as well as omicron nu in the accusative under neuter. And this is the same in the plural under neuter. You have alpha in the nominative plural, as well as alpha in the accusative plural under neuter. So what you put there on alpha is what you put down there in the accusative under alpha. And this applies also to the genitive and the dative. What you do to the singular is what you do to the plural. In the plural as well, in the genitive and the dative, under masculine and neuter, you have similarities in the genitive and the dative. What you put there under masculine is what you put there under neuter. So these are just similarities that you're going to find to help you learn the paradigm faster. Remember, the paradigm is very important because from now onwards, you're going to struggle if you don't know the paradigm by heart. Remember, on the paradigm, you have genders on top. You have masculine, neuter, and feminine. And by the side, you have number. It can be singular. You have singular endings, and you have the plural endings. And on each part, you have the four case endings. You have the nominative, the genitive, the dative, and the accusative. But you can use the tips that I've shared to help you learn the paradigm even quickly. Another thing to look at is the definite article. What is the definite article? The Greek definite article is like the English word there. But unlike English, Greek articles change their form to match the gender. And so you have articles in the masculine, you have articles in the feminine, and you have articles in the neuter. So Greek doesn't have just one word for the word there. It has different forms of the word there. It's one word meaning there, but you have different ways of writing the word there. And so the word there, or the definite article, has its own paradigm to master. But the good part is that that paradigm is similar to the one that you have just looked at. Paradigm of the first and second declension. And so as you look at the definite article, or the word there for Greek, there's not just one word for there in Greek. You need to learn the full paradigm for you to learn how the word there can be written in different ways. Let me explain what I mean. Let's look at the English example on top. For example, you have three phrases. You have the man, the woman, the house. And as you are looking at the three examples, the man, the woman, the house, you can see that the word there is written the same, regardless of what is being attached. You have man attached to the word there, you have woman attached to the word there, you have house attached to the word there. And so you have three genders there, man in the masculine, woman in the feminine, and you have house in neuter. But even though you have the word there attached to three different genders, the word there never changes. But this is not the case in Greek. In Greek, the word there, how you write the word there, changes depending on the gender, has the way you write the word there in Greek, or the definite article. Every gender has its own definite article, but the meaning is the same. It still means the word there. When you're translating, you translate it to mean there, but the way you write it is based on what kind of gender you're dealing with. And so in English, the word there is the same, regardless of what is attached to it. But in Greek, there are different ways of writing the word there, based on the gender. For example, you have three phrases in Greek there. The first one is ho anthropos, meaning the man. And you have he gune, meaning the woman. And you have to oikon, meaning the house. And so you have ho anthropos in the masculine, and you have he gune in the feminine, and you have to oikon in neuter. And so you have the three Greek genders there, masculine, feminine, and neuter. And as you can see, take a look at those highlighted words. Those highlighted words represent the word they in Greek. That's how you write they in three different genders. In the masculine, you write they as ho, with that rough breathing mark on top. Remember, the rough breathing mark adds H sound, and that's why it's sounding ho, not o, because of that rough breathing mark. But the point we're saying is that when you want to write the word they in Greek, it depends on the gender that you are writing it in, because each gender has a way you write the word they. For example, in the masculine, the word they is written as ho. In the feminine, the word they is written as he. In the neuter, the word they is written as to. But all of those three examples refer to the word they in Greek. And also take note, in Greek, we don't have the indefinite article, the word e. For example, a man, a woman, a house. The word e is not there in Greek. The indefinite article is not there in Greek. What you have is the definite article, the word they. And this word, or the definite article, has its own paradigm, and that paradigm needs to be mastered. The good part is that it's built on the previous paradigm as we looked at. And I'm going to show you how you can master the definite article paradigm in an easy way. So here's the paradigm for the definite article. You can see that there are different ways of writing the word they. All these case endings you're seeing refer to the word they. All of them, when you're translating each case ending that you're seeing on the screen, all these refer to the word they. This is how you write the word they, based on the case, based on the gender of the word, and based on the number. If you're in the singular, you look at the singular endings. If you're in the plural, you look at the plural endings. But this is how you write the word they in Greek. So the word they has 24 forms. So let me say it in a different way. There are 24 ways of writing the word they in Greek, based on the case of a word or based on the gender of the word, because each gender has its own way of writing the word they. And this case has its own way of writing the word they. For example, the way you write they in nominative is different from the way you write they in genitive or dative or accusative. And the singular has a way of writing they, and the plural has a way of writing they. That's why I said that you need to master these case endings so that you can learn how the word they is written. But I'm going to share how you can know the case endings quickly. This is the same paradigm as the one we looked at when we were looking at the first and second declension paradigm. So if you're learning how to master it, there are two things to notice. Number one, add a rough breathing mark to the masculine and feminine nominative. So in the masculine nominative and in the feminine nominative, you need to add the rough breathing mark. That mark you're seeing in the masculine nominative singular and in the feminine nominative singular, that mark on top of omicron and eta, those two marks are what we call the rough breathing mark. These are the ones that are adding the H sound. So when you're pronouncing, for example, that omicron, it's not O, but it's ho. And when you're pronouncing the eta, it's not A, but it's hey, because of the rough breathing mark. So point number one, when you're learning how to master this, add the rough breathing mark in the nominative singular as well as the feminine singular. And this rough breathing mark is added not just in the nominative singular, masculine and feminine, but also in the nominative plural, masculine and feminine. For example, you have hoi and you have hai. You have hoi and you have hai. In the masculine nominative plural and the feminine nominative plural. Two rough breathing marks. You have a breathing mark on hoi and breathing mark on hai. So that's the first change that has happened. The second change is this. Add the letter tau or T to all other endings. After adding the rough breathing mark in the masculine and feminine nominative singular and plural, The rest of the endings add the letter tau. You can see there that you have the letter tau added on all the other endings apart from the nominative singular in the masculine and the feminine. In the masculine and feminine, in the singular and plural, you have the rough breathing marks on top of the endings. But otherwise, in the other endings, you have the letter tau added to all the other endings. You have those two arrows that are showing you again what is repeating under the genitive and the dative in the singular as well as the plural. So again, as we said, there are similarities when you look at the paradigm, because this paradigm is the same paradigm that is used in first and second declension paradigm. There are only two things that have changed. You have rough breathing marks in the masculine and feminine, in the nominative singular as well as plural. And number two, you have the letter tau added on all the other endings, therefore creating the word they or the definite article paradigm. Let me show you how this is applied. And so we're going to be building some short sentences as we combine the definite article as well as Greek nouns. And so you have words that are in the masculine, words that are in the neuter, and words that are in the feminine. Remember what we said, every Greek noun has only one gender. And so if a word is in the feminine, you're going to use feminine endings. If a word is in the neuter, you're going to use neuter endings. If a word is in the masculine, you're going to use masculine endings. For example, let's look at the masculine. Remember, we're combining the definite article and the noun, definite article and the noun. On each case, you have the definite article and the noun, definite article and the noun. Why are we doing this? What I want you to know from this is this, that the definite article must agree with the noun in terms of case, gender, and number. If you have a definite article in the masculine, in the nominative singular, for example, ho, that ho must go alongside with a noun in the masculine, in the same gender, and in the same case, and in the same number. For example, you have logos in masculine, nominative singular. You have the phrase ho logos, ho logos. And logos means word, ho means there. So the translation is the word, the word. And when you come down in the genitive singular, you have tu logu. You can see the endings are the same for the definite article and the noun. Why? Because the definite article must agree. To agree means that it must carry the same endings as the noun it is attached to. If the noun is in the genitive and having omicron upsilon as the case ending, the definite article must also be having omicron upsilon as the case ending, because the definite article must agree with the noun in terms of case, gender, and number. And this applies to pronouns also and to adjectives. An adjective or a pronoun or a definite article must agree with the noun it is modifying or it is attached to in terms of case, gender, and number. The gender must be the same, the number must be the same, and the case must be the same. And that's why you have different ways of writing the word they or the definite article. And so in the nominative, you have the phrase ho logos. Genitive singular, you have tu logu. Dative singular, you have to logo. And accusative singular, you have ton logon. And this is the same principle that applies to the other two genders, the neuter and the feminine. The definite article must agree with the noun it is modifying. If the noun is in the neuter and having neuter endings, the definite article have neuter endings. And so here is how you translate the masculine. You have ho logos, meaning the word. You have tu logu, meaning of the word. You have to logo, meaning to the word. You have ton logon, meaning the word. And in the plural, you have hoi logoi, meaning the words. In the genitive, you have ton logon, meaning of the words. Remember, the genitive shows possession. And the dative says tois logois, meaning to the words. Remember, the dative adds the word to, and the genitive adds the word of. So in the genitive, it's of the words, and in the dative, it's to the words. And in the accusative, you have tous logus, meaning the words. And so how you translate the nominative and the accusative is the same, but the way they are written is different. And this same principle applies to the neuter and the feminine genders. For example, in the neuter you have the word to egon, meaning the work. Genitive has to egu, meaning of the work. Dative has to ego, meaning to the work. Accusative has to egon, meaning the work. And you have the plural endings, ta ega, meaning the works. It's now in the plural, so you're adding the s, the works. And the genitive has ton egon, meaning of the works. And the dative has tois egois, meaning of the works. And the genitive has ton egon, meaning of the works. The genitive shows possession. And when you're translating it, you will translate it to show possession of the works. And then you have the dative, tois egois, meaning to the works. And the last one is accusative, ta ega, meaning the works. Remember, how you translate the nominative is the same as the accusative. Also, you have the example given in the feminine, he, graphei. You can see the way the definite article he is written is having the same ending as graphei ending. There is eta and there is eta, because the article must agree with the noun it is modifying in its appearance. So let's look at this example. You have he graphei, and the word graphei means writing. And this is very important. You need to know the vocabulary, because the vocabulary is what will tell you how to translate the word. The word writing is coming from knowing the vocabulary, because graphei on the vocabulary means writing. And so without knowing the vocabulary, you are going to not know how to translate the word. And so you have he graphei, meaning the writing. And in the genitive, you have tes grapheis. Genitive has possession, so it's of the writing. And you have te graphei in the dative. The translation is to the writing. And in the accusative, you have ten graphen, meaning the writing. The plural endings, in the nominative plural, you have hai graphai, meaning the writings. And you have ton graphon, meaning of the writings. And you have tais graphais, meaning to the writings. And you have tas graphas in the accusative, meaning the writings. Remember, the way you translate the nominative plural is the same as the way you translate the accusative, but the endings are different. So if you are taught to conjugate the word logos, this is how you conjugate it. You just simply remove the ending, log, and begin attaching different case endings to show how the word logos can function in a word or in a sentence. As well as agon, if you're given to decline the word agon, you decline it in the neuter because the word agon is having neuter ending, so it belongs to the neuter. So you conjugate it in that way. As well as the word graphei, if you're given to decline the word graphei, that's how you decline it, by adding those different endings and translating it appropriately, depending on the case that is used. In some case, like the genitive, you're going to say of this, and in the dative, you're going to say to this, while the nominative and accusative is direct translation. And so again, why must you know the paradigm? Number one, the paradigm is very important because you're going to be able to read and understand the Greek sentences. Remember, Greek doesn't rely on word order. So if you don't recognize the word ending, you're going to misread the sentence. For example, ho logos means the subject of the sentence. Ton logon means the object of the sentence. Tu logu means possession in the sentence. So how you translate those phrases is based on what case is used or what gender is used. And you're not going to know the gender of the case if you don't know the case endings. Number two, it's important for you to know the paradigm, because by knowing the paradigm, you learn how to pass words. And by passing, we're talking about you identifying the case, the gender, and the number of a noun. Also, by learning the paradigm, you're going to be able to translate the phrases. Without the paradigm, you can't translate any phrase, because translation is dependent on you knowing the paradigm, knowing different functions or roles a word can play in a sentence, and that is shown by the paradigm. So knowing the paradigm is very, very important. As we talk about passing, there are phrases that we always use. For example, you have lexicon or lexicoform. And so let's try to look at what this means. For example, what is lexicon? Now, a lexicon is simply a dictionary for a language. Any language has a lexicon. For example, English has its own dictionary, and that dictionary is called a lexicon. Also in Biblical Greek, a Greek lexicon gives you the meaning of a Greek word. So it's like the Greek dictionary. But then what is a lexical form? The lexical form is the form of a word that appears in the dictionary. The way the words appear when you're mastering them on the vocabulary, that's their lexical form. For example, you have the word apostoloi. Apostoloi is coming from the word apostolos. And apostolos is a lexical form because that's how you have known it. That's how it appears on the vocabulary. And nouns on the vocabulary appear on the nominative singular, as I had already said. Let's look at some examples on how you can pass a word. For example, if you're given logos to pass, now as you're looking at the word logos, remember every noun has a stem and an ending. There's the stem and you have the case ending. For example, when you divide it there, you have log as a stem and you have omicron upsilon sigma as the case ending. And we said that when you look at the case ending will tell you the case, the gender, and the number of a word. For example, when you're looking at the word logos, just by looking at the case ending, if you have mastered the paradigm for the first and second declension nouns, the case of that word is the accusative because that case ending is found on the accusative. And number two, the number of the word is plural because omicron upsilon sigma, that case ending is found under the plural. And looking at the case ending, the gender of the word logos is masculine because that case ending is found under the masculine. So you can see the value of knowing the paradigm because just by looking at the word, as you are looking at the case ending will tell you the three things: the case, the gender, and the number. Now, how do you find the lexical form? By getting the stem. For example, the stem there is log, and log is coming from logos, the word logos. And logos means word. Logos means word. It's simply how the word logos appears on the vocabulary. How the word logos is shown on the vocabulary. On the vocabulary, the word logos is shown as logos because the word logos comes from the word logos, and logos means word. But then what is the meaning of the word logos, the word that you're given there to pass? What is the meaning of the word logos? Remember, when you're translating, you don't translate this lexical form, the dictionary form, you translate that word that you're given there to pass. So what is the translation of the meaning of this word there? First of all, the translation of meaning is based on how you have passed it. The meaning is based on the case, the gender, and the number of a word. For example, here, the case of a word is in the accusative. Remember, if a word is in the accusative, you add the word to when you're translating it. And secondly, here, the number of this word is plural because this case ending is found in the plural. And thirdly, this is under the masculine and is coming from the word logos. And logos, if you have mastered the vocabulary words, the word logos means word. And so the translation of this word logos, based on how we have passed it, first of all, we said the case is accusative, and accusative adds the word to when you're translating. So the translation is to word. But then you're not going to say to word because it's in the plural. The translation or the meaning is going to be to words, to words. And that is how you pass a word. And you can see that passing requires the knowledge of the paradigm. You can't pass if you do not know the paradigm. Try this example. You have the word graphon. Graphon. Try to give its case, its number and gender based on the case ending. And here, you need to know first of all where the word is coming from. The word graphon is coming from the word graphe. Graphe. The word graphe means writing or scripture. The word graphe means writing or scripture. But here, we're told to pass the word graphon. So try to pass this word. Try to give its case, its gender, its number. Alright, let's try it together. The word is graphon, and we said graphon comes from the word graphe, and graphe means writing or scripture. Looking at the case ending, the case ending tells us that the case of the word is in the genitive, because this case ending is found in the genitive. And the number is plural because Omicron Nu, when you look at the paradigm for the first and second declension, you're going to see that Omicron Nu is found in the plural and the gender is feminine. First of all, graphe, the word graphe is in the feminine, meaning that even graphon, since it's coming from the word graphe, is in the feminine. So the gender of the word is feminine. But then remember, the case is genitive, and when you're translating the genitive, you add the word of. And since the word means writing or scripture, the translation or meaning is going to be of scripture or of writing. But then, most important, the number is plural. So the word cannot be singular. Scripture is singular. So it has to be scriptures or writings. So the actual meaning or translation, the final translation or meaning is this: of scriptures or of writings. Of scriptures or of writings. That's the translation of the word graphon. And so let's summarize what we've looked at so far. We said when you look at the word, a noun, most importantly, you need to focus on the case ending, because the case ending will tell you the gender of a word, the case of a word, and the number of a word. And if you want to show how a word can function in different ways, we simply change the case ending. The stem remains the same, but the case ending changes. For example, you have the word apostolos. Apostolos means messenger, or it means an apostle. But then we can write apostle in the plural by simply changing the case ending. Instead of Omicron sigma, we put Omicron iota, because Omicron iota is the plural. And this comes from knowing the paradigm. As we are wrapping up, we want to look at how we can apply the things that we've looked at so far. And so look at how the paradigms that we've looked at so far are going to help us to translate phrases in Greek or sentences in Greek. And so this is the time to warm up and try to apply what I've learned. Try to apply those paradigms in helping you translate the words. And our first phrase in Greek is ho logos. Ho logos. Remember, it's not o logos, because you have the rough breathing mark. The rough breathing mark adds the H sound. So you have ho logos. And if you have mastered the paradigm for the definite article, you are going to know that that part there, ho, is the definite article. It means there. It stands for the word there. Ho means there. And you have logos. Logos means word. But then let's try to pass the word logos. Logos is a noun. The gender is masculine, and the number is singular, and the case is nominative. And so here's what I want you to be doing when you're passing a word. Start with the gender, the number, and the case. It's easier that way. Let me call it GNC, gender, number, and case. GNC, gender, number, and case. Give its gender, its number, and its case. So as you're looking at logos, the gender is masculine because of the case ending. That case ending there is masculine. And the number is singular because of the case ending. And the case is nominative. All that information is based on the paradigm. If you know the paradigm, you're going to be able to share all this information. And once you pass the noun, logos, you have passed also the definite article, ho. Because remember what we said? The definite article matches the noun in terms of GNC, the gender, number, and case. So whatever GNC the noun is carrying, those are the ones that the definite article will be carrying. So how do you translate the phrase ho logos? Since the number is singular and the word logos means word, the translation is going to be the word. The word. Let's look at the next phrase. Tes graphes. How do you pass this phrase? Tes graphes. To pass the phrase, you're going to look at the noun, and the noun here is graphes. When you're looking at the word graphes, you focus on the case ending. Looking at the case ending and keeping in mind the paradigm, the gender is feminine and the number is singular based on the case ending, and the case is genitive. And because the case is genitive, remember genitive, when you're translating genitive, you add the word of before the noun. You say of something. So in this word, you have the word graphe, and graphe means writing or scripture. So the translation is going to be of scripture. but then you have the word tes, and tes is a definite article. If you remember the paradigm for the definite article, tes is a definite article, and that definite article is in the feminine, is singular, and is genitive. The translation is going to be of the scripture or of the writing, and because it's singular, you're going to say writing instead of writings. Our next phrase is tu logu. Tu logu. As you are looking at the word logu, the noun logu, looking at the case ending omicron upsilon, that case ending is found in the masculine. So the gender is masculine and the number is singular, the case is genitive. And logu is coming from the word logos. Logos. And logos means word. And because the number is singular, you're going to say word instead of words. But because it's in the genitive, remember genitive adds the word of, so the translation of tu logu is going to be of the word. Of the word. Our next phrase is ton logon. Ton logon. How do you pass the word ton logon? To pass it, you focus on the word logon. Logon comes from the word logos. And looking at the word logon, looking at the case ending, that case ending is in the masculine, and the case ending is in the plural instead of the singular. It's in the plural. And the case itself is genitive. That case ending, omicron nu, is found in the genitive. And because it's in the plural, logos means word, and logon is going to mean words. But because the word is in the genitive, genitive adds the word of when you're translating. So you have of the words. Of the words. Next phrase is tois logois. Again, when you're looking at the word logois, logois comes from the word logos. And looking at the word logois, looking at the case ending, that case ending tells you that the gender is masculine, the number is plural, and the case is dative. And because the case is dative, before you translate, you add the word to before the word. To. Because the dative shows the indirect object, and indirect objects add the word to. Because logois is coming from the word logos, and logos means word, but here it's in the plural. Logois, looking at the case ending, logois is in the plural, and it's in the dative. Dative adds a word to. Now, because it's in the plural, instead of saying word, you're going to say words. But because it's in the dative, instead of just saying words, you're going to say to. And because you have the definite article tois, that tois there is a definite article. And that's why I said you need to master the paradigm for the definite article. That word tois is the definite article. So you have the word tois logois. And so the complete translation of the phrase tois logois is to the words. To the words. Our next phrase is tu egu. Tu egu. And our focus is on the noun egu. When you look at the noun egu, the case ending there, omicron upsilon, is telling us that the gender is neuter, the number is singular, and the case is genitive. And this word egu is coming from the word egon. And you can't know the lexical form where the word is coming from minus knowing the vocabulary. And the word egon means work. And so you have two meaning there, but then egu is in the genitive, and the case genitive adds the word of because it shows possession. So the full translation is going to be of the work. It's singular. Instead of saying works, you say work. So it's going to be of the work. Another example is ton egon. Ton egon, again, the word egon comes from the word egon. And when you look at the word egon, the gender is neuter, the number is plural, and the case is genitive. And because, again, the case is genitive, you add the word of, and because it's plural, so you say works. So instead of saying work, you say works. When you include the definite article, it becomes of the works. Of the works. Of because it's in the genitive, so you say of the works, showing possession. Another example is tois egois. Tois egois. Again, egois is coming from the word egon, meaning work. And when you look at the word egois, focus on the case ending. But let's start with the gender. The gender is neuter, the number is plural, the case is dative. Because that case ending there is dative, you're going to say two as you're translating. Because it's plural, instead of saying work, you say works. So the full translation of the phrase, including the definite article, is to the works. To the works. Another example is ties, graphies. Ties, graphies. Focus on the word graphies. You have the stem and the case ending. The stem is graph and the case ending is ice. And that case ending is telling you that the gender is feminine because the word graphies is coming from the word graphe. And the word graphe is ending with eta, and all words that are ending with eta are feminine. So since this word is coming from graphe, which is feminine, this word is feminine as well. And you look at the case ending tells you that that number is plural and the case is dative. And because it's dative, you add the word to. And because it's plural, graphe means writing or scripture. And so in the plural, it will be writings or scriptures. When you include the definite article, it's to the writings, because it's plural, to the writings. Another example is tous logus. The gender of logus is masculine, the number is plural, case is accusative. It comes from the word logon. And when you look at the case ending for logus, the gender is masculine, the number is plural, the case is accusative. And logus comes from the word logos. And logos means word. And because it's in the accusative, it's in the plural, and it's masculine, the translation is words. When you include the definite article, the full translation is the words. You don't attach the word to or of, because of is used when it's in the genitive. To is used when it's in the dative. But now it's in the accusative. So you say the words. And so you can try these other examples that are coming and see if you can apply the paradigm to this, following the concepts that I've been showing you. Try to go through and try to practice. Greek is a practical language. The more you practice is the way it gets in. The more you practice is the way it gets in. So follow the examples I was giving and follow how you tell the lexical form. Follow how you tell where the word is coming from. Follow how you translate the phrase by looking at the gender, the number, and the case. Remember, if the word is genitive, you add the word of. If the word is dative, you add the word to. If the word is singular, you translate it in the singular. If the word is in the plural, you translate it in the plural. If the word is having the definite article, you use the word there. So you can be pausing the video as you are trying to apply yourself and apply the paradigm to the concepts. After translating, you have this memory verse that I've attached. It's from John 1 verse 1. And by now, I'm sure you must be able to read Greek because you've looked at the alphabet and you have looked at all the different components that allow you to read and pronounce Greek words. So you have John 1 verse 1. You can try to pronounce it. You can try to read it out. But the reading is en akei, en ho logos, kai ho logos, en proston theon, kai theos, en ho logos. And the meaning is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. As you look at the first sentence there, en akei, en ho logos, that first sentence there, try to determine the subject of the sentence. Which one among those is the subject of the sentence? Now, based on what I've looked at so far, the subject of the sentence is going to have nominative endings. So the one that is having Omicron sigma is logos, the word. You have logos with the nominative endings. And so in that sentence, or in that verse, the subject of the sentence is the word. So in the beginning was the word. So the word is the subject of the sentence. Remember what we said, in Greek, word order is not followed. You can see the word is the last part in the sentence, yet is the subject of the sentence. While in English, if you want to show the subject of a sentence, you put the word in the first. So word order is very important in English, while in Greek, it's about the case ending. The case ending will tell you, regardless of where the word is placed, that this is the subject of the sentence, or this is showing possession, or it's the indirect object of the sentence. Let's look at vocabulary that you're going to find in chapter 5. You have the word agape, meaning love. And then you have the word agapao. Agapao is a verb, and we said verbs most of the times are going to end with omega. So when you're looking at the word that is ending with omega on the vocabulary, that word is a verb. The other word is aletheia. Aletheia. And aletheia means truth. The other word is hamartia. This is where we get the word hamartology. Hamartology, the study of sin. Hamartia means sin. Another word is basileia. Basileia means kingdom. This is where we get the Greek word basileos. And basileos means king, because basileia means kingdom. Another word is graphe. Graphe. And this is where we get the English word biography. Biography, which means a written account of one's life, a written document of one's life. Because graphe in Greek means writing, can be writing or scripture. And then we have the word grapho. Remember that omega at the end shows that that word is a verb. I write. So grapho means I write, while graphe means writing. And then you have egero. Again, you have that omega at the end showing you that that's a verb. Egero means I raise up. And you have ecclesia. Ecclesia. And ecclesia means assembly, the church. It means the church. And this word is important because ecclesia comes from two Greek words. Ek, meaning out of, and kaleo, meaning to call. So the word ecclesia means the called out. So the church represents a body of believers that are called out of the world to stand different from the world. That's why 1 Peter 2 verse 9 says, "But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, so that you may proclaim the praises of the one who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." The church or ecclesia is the called out, the people that are called out of darkness into his marvelous light. So ecclesia represents the called out, or church, the assembly, body of believers. Next word is egon. That's where we get the word energy. Egon means work. Mathetes is the next word, and mathetes means disciple or a learner. And that's where we get the English word mathematics, to learn. Mathetes means disciple or a learner. And then you have hora. Hora. Hora means hour. It means hour. It means hour or time. Another word is de. De. De means but, or it can mean end. But most of the times, de means but. The last word is the word there, or the definite article. And we say the word there can show in three different ways. Ho, he, or to. Ho is in the masculine, he is in the feminine, and to is in the neuter. So these are words that you're going to find in chapter 5. This marks end of chapter 5. Practice, 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 and God bless.